1983 Datsun Laurel vs 1983 Talbot Tagora. Introduction. In the early 1980s, the executive saloon market was a curious melee. Buyers with half an eye on German precision and the other on sensible pricing found themselves faced with a motley crew of contenders. Among these were two rather unlikely rivals, the Datsun Laurel and the Talbot Tagora. Here, we pit these mid-sizers against one another in a head-to-head comparison. Both are 1983 models built to UK specifications. Both promise to whisk you along A roads, bore you on motorways, and possibly embarrass you at the petrol station. But only one can be supreme, and there will be jokes. The contenders. 1983 Datsun Laurel. Originally a Japanese saloon with global ambitions, the 1983 Datsun Laurel wears its sensible creds like a woolly sweater, comfortable, understated, and unfashionably warm. Powered by a straight six and available in various trims, the Laurel was the sort of car you could imagine quietly cruising to the golf club in, if you were oddly proud of understatement. UK spec highlights. Engine, 2.0-litre and 2.4-litre straight-six options. Transmission, 5-speed manual or 3-speed automatic. Trim, plush, upholstered seats, wood effect dash. Drive, rear-wheel drive. Handling, stable, compliant, if not especially thrilling. 1983 Talbot Tagora. The Tagora was Peugeot's answer to the executive saloon, albeit one that arrived late, somewhat confused, and resembling a washing machine more than a speed machine. With French flair, for better or worse, it promised practical space and sedate performance. In the UK, it was positioned against the likes of the Ford Granada, noble company, if not terribly glamorous. UK spec highlights. Engine, 1.9-litre petrol, 2.0-litre petrol, and 2.2-litre petrol variants. Transmission, 4 or 5-speed manual, 3-speed automatic. Trim, conservative cloth or velour. Drive, front-wheel drive. Handling, predictable but ponderous. First impressions. Exterior styling. Laurel. At first glance, the Laurel appears serene, less a car, more a silhouette in grege. It's a box with slightly softened edges, kind of like a hedgehog that decided not to bother bristling. Chrome accents attempt to add gravitas, or confusion, and the front grille looks slightly apologetic, as if it's embarrassed to be seen in public. It isn't sexy. It isn't bold. But it does say, I have sensible ambitions and I park neatly within the lines. Tagora. If the Laurel is a hedgehog, the Tagora is a goose that wandered into a coachyard. Its lines are long, its face overly earnest, and its proportions almost aggressive in their lack of elegance. The front end seems to be in a perpetual state of wondering why it was dragged out of bed for this photo shoot. Still, there's something oddly charming, like a moustache on a Labrador. The Tagora doesn't apologize, it simply is. Verdict, the Laurel gently whispers competence. The Tagora proudly shouts, something. Neither will win a beauty contest, but both have character. Interior and comfort. Cabin ambience. Laurel. Step inside and you're greeted by seats that swallow you with soft velour and a dash that seems designed to reduce stress. Buttons are chunky, switches are forgiving, and there's a polite sense of order to everything. The wood effect trim doesn't elevate the car to mansion status, but it suggests the possibility of a mansion. Space-wise, there's plenty of room for passengers, even if one of them insists on reclining at an angle best described as artistic. Tagora. The Tagora's interior is roomy, very roomy. You could host a small gathering in the back seat without anyone noticing. The Dash is a French-styled affair, button-heavy, vaguely theatrical, and occasionally contradicting itself. For example, is this seat heating or a secret ejector seat? Materials are reasonable, if not quite up to Germanic standards. There's a sense that the designers prioritized comfortable space over coherent aesthetic, yet we don't hold that against it, not entirely. Verdict: if you like quiet, composed interiors, the Laurel feels familiar and reassuring. If you like room and a hint of continental eccentricity, the Tagora's cabin won't disappoint. Drivetrain and performance. Engines. Laurel straight six. Oh yes. A straight six in 1983 was like having a polite butler under the bonnet. Smooth, balanced, and surprisingly pleasant, the 2.4-litre version in UK spec delivered adequate shove without fuss. You never felt rushed, but you did feel content, like your trousers just had elastic waistbands. Manuals are rare but delightful, automatics are smooth but inclined to think deeply at roundabouts. Tagora's engines. The Tagora's petrol engines were perfectly adequate, if not exactly spirited. Out on an open stretch, you could coax a decent turn of pace, but it never felt like splitting the atom. The 2.2-litre variant had a respectable shove, but always within the context of thoughtful acceleration rather than exuberant performance. The front-wheel drive layout made for confident everyday use, but enthusiastic cornering wasn't exactly on the menu. On the road. Laurel. Here's where the Laurel comes into its own, big car stability with a relaxed charm. Out on the motorway at 70 miles per hour, the car felt composed and unflappable. Crosswinds barely registered. Lorries lumbered past, and the Laurel simply hummed, like some wise old uncle who refuses to raise his voice. Handling is neutral if a touch soft. Enthusiasts may yearn for sharper feedback, but everyday drivers will enjoy the forgiving nature. Tagora. The Tagora's front-wheel drive gave it sure-footedness, particularly in wet British weather, and goodness knows we tested that many times. Steering is light and predictable. Yet at higher speeds, there's a feeling of weight that the Tagora's chassis isn't quite sure what to do with, as if it has one foot on the beach and another at the office. The ride is comfortable, though body roll is mentioned in passing like a distant acquaintance. Verdict: for motorway cruising, the Laurel is a comfy armchair. Around town and on wet roads, the Tagora feels composed and safe. Neither is a sports saloon, but both are trustworthy companions. Practicality. Space and usability. Laurel. Boot space is generous, easily swallowing luggage for a weekend away, or several bags of garden compost. Rear passenger room is ample, though tall adults may notice the roofline encroaching ever so slightly. Storage cubbies up front are sensible if unspectacular. Tagora. If interior space was Olympic sport, the Tagora would be on the podium. Rear legroom is phenomenal. Adults in the back could stretch without fuss. The boot is cavernous, capable of accommodating curiosities like foldable bicycles or very confused relatives. The only practical downside. The size encourages you to collect things you don't need, just because they fit. Verdict: on pure spaciousness, Tagora wins by a nose, or a bootful. Driving character. Personality on the road. Laurel. Driving the Laurel is like having a conversation with someone who has excellent manners and no desire to impress anyone. It doesn't shout, doesn't boast, and certainly doesn't honk unless provoked. Its smooth engine and polite handling make for a relaxed cruise, the kind of car that invites you to take the scenic route because, well, why not? Tagora. The Tagora is more like a polite dinner guest who occasionally blurts out surprising opinions. It's practical, reliable, and smartly capable, yet it has quirks. Light steering, a softish ride and a certain French flair make it feel like a well-mannered companion with a hint of mischief. There's joy in its predictability, and mild amusement in its little oddities. Verdict: Laurel is serene, Tagora is approachable and chatty. Ownership and costs, 1983 context. In 1983, both cars were pitched as affordable alternatives to pricier German rivals. Laurel, Japanese engineering was widely respected for reliability, spare parts were reasonably priced, and most mechanics knew their way around a straight six. Fuel consumption was acceptable for the era, though not astonishing. Tagora, as a product of the PSA Group, Peugeot Talbot, the Tagora shared parts with other French models. This meant servicing was usually straightforward, though finding specific bits might occasionally be like tracking down a rare vinyl record, rewarding when successful, baffling when not. Insurance groups were moderate for both, though the Laurel's engine size might bump premium slightly. The verdict. So, which should you choose? Let's distill this like a whiskey sampler. Category 1983 Datsun Laurel 1983 Talbot Tagora. Styling understated, calm bold, peculiar. Interior calm and plush, spacious and quirky. Performance smooth and composed, predictable and safe. Practicality generous, hugely generous. Driving character relaxed and serene, friendly and comfortable. Classic appeal, yes, cult classic. Final thoughts. Choose the Laurel if you value understated comfort, silky engine note, and a saloon that whispers solid choice rather than shouts look at me. Choose the Tagora if you want vast interior space, French character, and a car that's both sensible and quietly memorable. Both cars represent a fascinating snapshot of early 1980s automotive thinking, dependable, pragmatic saloons that carry you without fuss, perhaps with a dash of humor along the way. Conclusion. In the duel of practicality and personality, the Talbot Tagora wins hearts with space and charm, while the Datsun Laurel wins respect with poise and reliability. The choice comes down to what you treasure more, a peaceful cruise or a capacious carriage with a quirky streak. Either way, 1983 never looked so delightfully civilized.